I'm Cal Schwartz. I'm the production manager for Shakespeare in Detroit, but I am also our head costume designer and manufacturer of all of our costumes here at Shakespeare in Detroit. Today I am with company member Laura Heikkinen, and we are going to discuss how to put on a corset. So the first thing that you want to do after you get your busks at the front closed, which is this closure down the front, you will want to go ahead and start lacing up your corset. So now that we have the corset on, we're going to go ahead and get started lacing. Now this is the most time-consuming part of the process, but it's also the most important to make sure that we're situated exactly where we need to be. Now there's many different ways to lace a corset. I have had many debates with many drapers in many fittings about how the proper way to lace it is. I like to lace it with two separate laces that meet in the middle at the waist. So from the top to the waist, and then from the hips to the waist. And once we get her all laced in, then I will show you exactly why we like to do it that way here at Shakespeare in Detroit. So we go back and forth, tightening as we go, just to give yourself some slack to work with. Back and forth. And if you run out of laces, because you've gone too tight, this is when you adjust to give yourself some more slack down at the bottom. And oftentimes what I'll do is I will tie them off from the top one, and I will go ahead and I will get the bottom laces started at that time. So same procedure. Now when you go over the hips, obviously you're not going to lace quite as tight. The goal is that hourglass figure, so you want to make sure the hips and the bust are wider than the waist. Now, throughout history, many times corsets were not laced quite as tight as you think. When you think of a corset and you think turn of the century, that's when corset lacing really got to its extreme. But for the purposes of theater and for what we like to do, really you just want to make sure that the waist is smaller. Now, we do cheat in theater. Very oftentimes we'll pad the hips and we will pad the bust to make the waist appear smaller. And we continue to lace. And now, when you get to a certain corset, if the corset happens to be longer than the waist of the person, which I'm noticing here, there is a way to cheat. You can leave the bottom few grommets undone and start a few up. And that will help you get your fit just right. This corset wasn't built for Laura. Laura's had many corsets built for her with us. This is just one that we had in stock. And so I grabbed a couple options today to see what would work. And of course, I didn't measure Laura's waist. So she has a corset that's a little too long for her. So now we're getting to that point that I was telling you about where the two laces meet at the waist. And I will show you why I like to have two different laces. So you hold your bottom laces that you just laced into your hand. Then you take your top laces and untie that knot. Now if you're dressing someone else, now is a good time to let them catch a breath. And so I always have the actor or the performer take a deep breath in, hold it, and that buys them some more room so that as you go to tighten it, their lungs and their rib cage is already expanded. Now she can relax and breathe, and it won't be as tight as if you cinch her in without any air in her lungs. So at this point, I'll go ahead, tie off the corset. I do a double bow to make sure it doesn't slip in the middle of a show. And then these bottom ones that you left unlaced, the petticoat or the skirt or whatever overgarment you're putting over it smooths that down, and you don't have to worry too much about it. Now, if this is a fashion corset, you will want to be sized in it first. Or else, you're wearing this on the outside with the back flapping around, and you don't want to have that. So, if it is a period corset and it's in an undergarment, it doesn't quite matter. But for the purposes of a fashion corset, you want to make sure that it is nice and snug against your body, and the laces are long enough, and it's wide enough to go over your hips. When you want to buy a corset to take you in, you want to have at least 4 inches at the back. If it's a corset that's going under something, you need the room to adjust and to take you in. If it's not, if it meets at the back, it really doesn't do anything for you. That would then be known as a fashion corset. Oftentimes when you buy fashion corsets from the store, you'll see a panel in between the two pieces of the back. That's called your modesty panel. Those corsets are meant to be worn on the outside as fashion corsets. This corset specifically is a functional structural undergarment. So that's one of the features to think about. Boning is also very important. You want to have a nice sturdy boning. It's not supposed to be 800 pounds. It is supposed to be lightweight and wearable, but it is steel bone on the inside. Oftentimes the commercial bones that you'll buy from the store or that will come in a manufactured corset will be plastic or Ridgeline. We use spiral steel boning, and at the front we use steel busks. Now a cool thing about this corset is a spoonbill corset. So the busk on this one is, it's a spoonbill busk. This busk is scooped at the bottom on both sides and it looks like a spoon. So later in time, probably the mid-1800s, they invented the spoonbill, which gives you more support at the bottom and it pulls everything in. Most busks are just nice and straight and they don't give you a ton of support. This is wider around the middle of the abdomen and this helps scoop it in. So if you're ever in the 1890s or you see something in that time period, oftentimes they're a spoonbill corset because they help give the shape that you need. And that, friends, is how you wear a corset with Shakespeare in Detroit.